Xiao the hidden fighter. The tormentors made a critical error when they cornered the quiet transfer student. They had no idea she possessed years of combat training and a deadly calm that would change everything. Sophia Chen maintained a low profile as she weaved through the bustling corridors of Riverside Academy. At 17, she had become an expert at being the outsider, having attended 5 different schools in 6 years due to her mother's consulting career that demanded constant relocation. Each transition required mastering new environments, unfamiliar social dynamics, and unspoken territorial rules. Standing barely 5'3" with a petite build, straight black hair perpetually pulled into a simple ponytail, and wire-rimmed spectacles that concealed her dark brown eyes, Sophia had perfected the art of invisibility. This anonymity was typically her preference, her sanctuary in the chaos of adolescent hierarchies. What her new classmates at Riverside couldn't possibly know, what none of her previous schools had discovered initially, was that Sophia had been immersed in martial arts disciplines since age 8. Her mother, a former military intelligence officer, had insisted on comprehensive self-defense training. A decade of rigorous instruction had forged her into a lethal combatant with razor-sharp instincts and expertise in multiple fighting styles, including Krav Maga and Muay Thai. She could neutralize adversaries significantly larger than herself without visible effort. Yet Sophia never flaunted these abilities. Her upbringing had instilled the principle that combat skills were exclusively for protection, never for display or dominance. True power lies in restraint, her mother consistently reminded her. Additionally, being perpetually the newcomer meant constantly attempting integration rather than distinction. Riverside Academy sprawled across 15 acres in the suburban district, housing over 1,800 students arranged in rigid social hierarchies. After 3 weeks of attendance, Sophia had mentally catalogued the hazardous territories: the isolated corridor behind the gymnasium, the secluded courtyard adjacent to the music building, and the main staircase where the school's self-appointed elite congregated. These social predators were commanded by Marcus Sterling, an 18-year-old senior with meticulously styled blonde hair, designer clothing, and an arrogant expression that somehow escaped faculty notice. His primary lieutenants included Jake Morrison, a hulking offensive lineman whose brawn far exceeded his intellect, and Ethan Cross, a tall, lean figure with calculating eyes who derived genuine satisfaction from others' suffering. They navigated the academy as if they possessed it, and in numerous respects they did. Sophia had received warnings about them before completing her first week. "Avoid Marcus and his associates at all costs," a helpful classmate named Zoe had cautioned. "They target someone fresh each term. Last year, they psychologically destroyed a sophomore until his family transferred him." For nearly a month, Sophia had successfully evaded their radar. She utilized alternative pathways between classes, consumed lunch in the library's quiet sanctuary, and maintained maximum inconspicuousness. However, she was discovering that invisibility had temporal limitations. The harassment commenced subtly, as it invariably does. Sophia was rushing toward advanced biology, her arms laden with textbooks, when she rounded a corner and nearly collided with Jake. "Watch yourself," he snarled, examining her with narrowed, predatory eyes. "My apologies," Sophia murmured, attempting to sidestep him. "Hold on," he called after her. "You're the transfer student, correct? What's your name?" Sophia hesitated briefly before responding, without turning back. "Sophia. Sophia," Jake repeated, drawing out each syllable mockingly. "Better pay attention next time, Sophia." She sensed his gaze following her retreat, and unfamiliar tension coiled in her stomach. She recognized that evaluating look, the expression of a predator assessing potential prey. The following day, her textbooks were deliberately knocked from her hands at her locker. She glanced up to observe Ethan departing with his companions, laughing. "Whoops," he called over his shoulder. "Clumsy me." Several days later, Marcus himself materialized beside her in the cafeteria during what she'd believed was a safe moment to eat there, instead of the library. "So you're our new charity case?" he stated conversationally, as though they were longtime friends. Sophia, nobody from nowhere. Sophia kept her attention on her meal. "Simply trying to eat lunch. Aren't we all?" Marcus grinned at his own weak humor. "Here's the situation, transfer girl. There's a specific hierarchy here, and rule 1 is understanding your position." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "And your position isn't here among the regular students. Your position is, well, we'll determine that for you." Sophia felt her muscles tense, her body instinctively preparing for confrontation. She consciously relaxed, concentrating on her breathing as her instructor had taught her. "This isn't the training facility. This isn't a sanctioned match. You cannot engage here." "Thanks for the orientation," she replied evenly, gathering her belongings. "But I can establish my own place." Marcus's hand shot out, grasping her wrist, not painfully but firmly enough to communicate authority. "That's not how this operates." For a split second, Sophia calculated precisely how she could break that grip, how effortlessly she could flip Marcus across the table, how quickly she could apply a submission hold that would leave him gasping. Instead, she did what was expected of the timid new girl. She pulled away and hurried from the cafeteria, laughter echoing behind her. The incidents intensified from there. Her books were regularly swept to the floor, her locker was sabotaged. With adhesive, whispers pursued her through hallways, spreading rumors about her transfer reasons, crude commentary about her appearance and reserved demeanor. Anonymous projectiles struck the back of her head during classes when instructors weren't observing. None of this was unfamiliar to Sophia, and nothing she couldn't endure. She maintained her solitude, completed her assignments, and focused on surviving each day. At night, she would train in their converted basement gym, working through her frustrations on the punching bag, reminding herself why she didn't retaliate. It's never worthwhile. It only escalates situations. It's exactly what they want. A reaction. But Marcus and his crew seemed to interpret her non-response as further provocation. They were accustomed to eliciting responses: tears, anger, pleading. Sophia's composed detachment clearly frustrated them, compelling them to intensify their efforts. 4 weeks into the semester, Sophia found herself trapped in the main stairwell after school. She had remained late for a study group in the library, and the corridors were largely deserted. She saw them approaching, Marcus leading, with Jake and Ethan flanking him like devoted sentries, but there was no escape route. "Well, look who we have here," Marcus announced, his voice reverberating in the empty stairwell. Sophia nobody, all by herself. Sophia tightened her grip on her backpack strap. "I need to get home." "Did you hear that, guys?" Marcus looked at his companions. "She needs to get home, probably has to go cry to Mommy about how cruel everyone is at her new school." "I've observed her in gym class," Jake added. "She always changes in the bathroom stall, probably embarrassed about her body." He made a disgusted expression. "Not that there's much to observe." Sophia felt heat rise in her cheeks. It was accurate that she changed privately, not from embarrassment, but because she didn't want anyone to notice the defined musculature that would reveal her training. "Just let me pass," she said, striving to keep her voice steady. "Or what?" Ethan stepped closer. "What are you going to do about it?" "Nothing," Sophia thought. "I'm going to do nothing because that's what I always do." That had been the rule. It was the rule at her previous school and the one before that. Maintain low profile, avoid confrontation. We'll be relocating soon enough. Except, her mother had promised they were staying this time, at least until graduation. This wasn't a temporary situation she could endure. This was her reality now. "I just want to go home," she repeated, hating how small her voice sounded. Marcus positioned himself directly in her path, completely blocking it. "You know what your problem is, Sophia. You think you're superior to us, walking around all quiet and aloof like you're above everyone. You can't even be bothered to react." "I don't think that at all," Sophia said. "Liar," Ethan hissed. "Everyone talks about how you look at people like they're beneath you." This wasn't true. Sophia made a point of avoiding eye contact with anyone, but she knew it didn't matter. They had already decided who she was and what she deserved. "Move," she said with slightly more force. "Make me," Marcus challenged, taking another step toward her. And then Jake was behind her, too close, and she felt his hands slide down her back toward her rear. "Maybe what she needs is a little attention," he said with laughter in his voice. "Show her how we welcome new girls here." Sophia felt a calm clarity wash over her. Time seemed to decelerate as she felt Jake's hand moving toward her backside. Without conscious thought, pure instinct and training taking control, she spun around, catching his wrist in a grip that made him gasp in surprise. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back, using his own momentum to slam him face first into the wall. "What the?" Marcus began, but he didn't complete the sentence because Sophia had already released Jake, who slumped to the floor in shock and turned her attention to the ringleader. She moved, with a speed that seemed impossible for someone her size, sweeping Marcus's legs from under him with a practiced kick. He landed hard on his back, the air rushing from his lungs in a pained wheeze. Ethan, witnessing his friends taken down in seconds, rushed at Sophia with a wild, angry yell. She sidestepped easily, using his own momentum against him, and flipped him over her hip. He landed next to Marcus with a thud that echoed through the stairwell. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 10 seconds. Sophia stood in the center of the fallen bullies, her breathing even, her stance balanced and ready. A decade of training had made these movements as natural to her as walking. "Don't ever touch me again," she said, her voice low and controlled. "Don't speak to me, don't look at me, leave me alone." Jake was the first to recover, pushing himself up from the floor, his face red with a mixture of pain, shock, and humiliation. "You're insane," he gasped. "No," Sophia corrected, adjusting her glasses calmly. "I'm trained, there's a difference." She stepped over Marcus, who was still trying to catch his breath, and headed down the stairs. Only when she was outside the building, the cool afternoon air hitting her face, did she allow herself to feel the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the rush of adrenaline and the release of weeks of pent-up tension. Mom is going to be furious, she thought, but deep down she knew her mother would understand. This wasn't about showing off or seeking a fight. This was genuine self-defense. What Sophia didn't realize was that they hadn't been alone in that stairwell. Zoe, the girl who had first warned her about Marcus and his crew, had been coming up the stairs and had witnessed the entire confrontation. By the next morning, the story had spread throughout Riverside Academy like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each retelling. Sophia arrived at school to find people staring at her, conversations stopping when she walked by. But it was different from before. There was no mockery in these stares, no cruel amusement. Instead, she saw something new: respect, awe, and more than a little fear. "Is it true?" Zoe cornered her before first period. "Did you really put all three of them on the ground?" Sophia felt her stomach drop. "I don't want to talk about it. They're saying you're like some kind of ninja," another girl chimed in, "that you flipped Jake over your head. That's not exactly—" "Marcus is telling everyone he let you win," a boy Sophia had never spoken to added. "But Ethan's got a bruise the size of a softball on his hip, and Jake can barely turn his head." Sophia closed her eyes briefly. This was exactly what she hadn't wanted. Attention, rumors, becoming the center of gossip, but there was no undoing what had happened. She made it through the morning in a haze of whispers and stares. By lunchtime, she'd heard at least 5 different versions of the fight, each more exaggerated than the last. According to some, she had knocked all 3 boys unconscious. Others claimed she had martial arts weapons hidden in her backpack. One particularly creative sophomore was telling anyone who would listen that Sophia was in a secret government training program. But the most surprising part was that Marcus, Jake, and Ethan were nowhere to be seen. They weren't in the cafeteria at their usual table, weren't patrolling the hallways between classes. It was as if they had vanished. Sophia was sitting alone at lunch, picking at her food and trying to ignore the stares, when she felt someone slide onto the bench across from her. She looked up to find Marcus sitting there, but not with his usual swagger. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes downcast. A bruise was forming at the base of his throat where he'd hit the floor. "What do you want?" Sophia asked, immediately on guard. Marcus glanced around, clearly uncomfortable with the dozens of eyes watching them. "I just wanted to say, what happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. And it won't happen again," Sophia finished for him, "if you and your friends leave me alone." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's fair." He paused, then added in a lower voice, "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Despite herself, Sophia felt a small smile tug at her lips. "My mum started teaching me when I was 8. I've got experience in multiple disciplines, and I've been doing comprehensive training since I was 10. Marcus's eyes widened. "Seriously? That's actually pretty impressive." An announcement came over the PA system then. "Sophia Chen, please report to the principal's office." Sophia Chen to the principal's office. Sophia sighed. She'd been expecting this. "Guess someone told." "It wasn't me," Marcus said quickly, "and it wasn't Jake or Ethan either. We didn't tell anyone." Sophia looked at him, searchingly trying to detect a lie, but he seemed genuine. "Thanks, I guess." As she walked to the principal's office, Sophia steeled herself for the worst. Fighting on school grounds was an automatic suspension at most schools, possibly even expulsion. Her parents would be called. There would be discussions about anger, management, and appropriate conflict resolution. She'd been through it before at her first school, when she'd finally snapped after months of bullying. The irony was that the bullies had received no punishment beyond a stern talking to. Principal Matthews was a distinguished-looking woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. She gestured for Sophia to take a seat across from her desk. "Miss Chen," she began, "I've heard some concerning reports about an altercation yesterday afternoon." Sophia took a deep breath. "Yes, ma'am." Would you care to explain what happened? Sophia told her the truth, not embellishing or making excuses. She explained how Marcus, Jake, and Ethan had been harassing her for weeks. She described being cornered in the stairwell and how Jake had tried to grope her. She confessed to using her martial arts training to defend herself. I know fighting isn't allowed, she concluded, and I'm prepared to accept whatever punishment you think is appropriate, but I want to be clear that I didn't start this, and I only did what I felt was necessary to protect myself. Principal Matthews had listened without interruption, her expression revealing nothing. Now she leaned forward, hands clasped on her desk. Miss Chen, are you aware that we have security cameras in all stairwells? Sophia's heart sank. No, ma'am. Well, we do, and I've reviewed the footage from yesterday afternoon quite carefully. The principal picked up a remote and turned toward a small screen on her wall. Would you like to see it? Without waiting for a response, she pressed play. The grainy black and white footage clearly showed Sophia being cornered, showed Jake's hand moving toward her backside, showed her efficient self-defense moves that put all three boys on the ground without causing serious injury. The entire incident, just as Sophia had described it, was there on film. Principal Matthews paused the video. Sexual assault is a serious offense at this school, Miss Chen. So is physical intimidation and bullying. All three of these young men have been suspended, and Mr. Morrison is facing additional disciplinary action for his inappropriate touching. Sophia blinked in surprise. I'm not in trouble? For defending yourself against unwanted sexual contact? Certainly not. Principal Matthews' expression softened slightly, though I would appreciate it if you would consider less dramatic methods of self-defense in the future, perhaps a shout for help or reporting harassment to a teacher before it escalates to this point. Yes, ma'am, Sophia said, relief washing over her. That said, the principal continued, your martial arts skills are quite impressive. Our girls' self-defense club could use someone with your expertise. Perhaps you'd consider volunteering as a peer instructor. It might be a more constructive outlet for your abilities. Sophia felt a genuine smile spread across her face for the first time in weeks. I'd like that a lot, actually. When Sophia returned to class, the whispers followed her, but they were different now. News of the suspended bullies had spread, along with rumors that Sophia had been asked to teach self-defense rather than being punished. By the end of the day, 3 different girls had approached her about learning that move she'd used on Jake. The real change came the following week when Marcus, Jake, and Ethan returned from their suspensions. They were subdued, avoiding eye contact with Sophia when they passed her in the hallways. Jake, in particular, seemed to give her a wide berth, staring at the floor whenever she was nearby. But on Wednesday, something unexpected happened. Sophia was eating lunch with Zoe and a few other girls when Marcus approached their table. The conversation immediately died as everyone watched warily. Can I talk to you? He asked Sophia. Alone. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. I'll be right back, she told her new friends. She followed Marcus to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, maintaining a careful distance. What is it? Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. I just wanted to apologize, I guess. For everything. What we did was messed up. It wasn't the most eloquent apology, but the red flush creeping up Marcus's neck suggested it was sincere. Okay, Sophia said simply. That's it, okay? What do you want me to say, that I forgive you? I don't know if I do yet. Marcus nodded slowly. That's fair. I've been thinking a lot during suspension about why I do the things I do, and I'm not proud of it. You shouldn't be, Sophia agreed. I know. He hesitated, then added, my dad, he's kind of a jerk. Always talking about being a man, being tough, not taking crap from anyone. And I guess I thought that's what I was doing, being tough. But really, I was just being him. Sophia hadn't expected this level of self-reflection from Marcus. She studied his face, seeing vulnerability there that he usually kept carefully hidden. You don't have to be like him, she said finally. You can choose to be better. I don't know how, Marcus admitted. Sophia considered him for a moment. Well, for starters, you could help me with something. I'm teaching a self-defense workshop for the girls' club next week. It might be helpful. You ought to have a volunteer for demonstrations. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. You want me to help after everything? It's not about you, Sophia clarified. It's about helping other girls learn to protect themselves. And maybe it'll help you understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of intimidation. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. You're kind of terrifying, you know that? Good, Sophia said with a small smile of her own. Remember that the next time you think about bullying someone. The next few weeks brought changes to Riverside Academy that no one could have predicted. The girls' self-defense club saw its membership triple, with Sophia leading workshops twice a week. Marcus, true to his word, showed up as a volunteer, allowing himself to be flipped and pinned by Sophia in demonstrations that left the girls cheering. More surprisingly, Ethan joined the drama club, where his talent for writing, previously used mainly for cruel social media posts, found a more positive outlet. Jake, after a stern talking to from his football coach about respecting women, became almost painfully polite, offering awkward apologies to other students he'd bullied in the past. Sophia found herself with something she'd never had at any of her previous schools: friends, real friends who knew her strengths and respected her for them rather than fearing her or expecting her to hide them. Zoe and several others from the self-defense club became regular lunch companions, and soon Sophia was being invited to study, groups and weekend hangouts. One afternoon, about a month after the stairwell incident, Sophia was walking home when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Jake jogging to catch up with her. "Hey," he said, slightly out of breath. "Can I walk with you? I'm heading this way too." Sophia nodded cautiously. They walked in silence for a few minutes before Jake spoke again. "I never properly apologized to you," he said, "for, trying to—" He trailed off, his face reddening. "Grope me," Sophia replied. "Yeah." Jake looked genuinely ashamed. "It was wrong, really wrong, and I'm sorry." "Why did you do it?" Sophia asked, genuinely curious. Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, because I thought I could, because Marcus and Ethan were watching, and I wanted to look cool, because that's what guys like us did to girls like you." "Girls like me?" "Girls who wouldn't fight back," Jake grimaced. "Except you did fight back, and you should have." "What I did, what I tried to do, it wasn't okay." Sophia studied him as they walked. "No, it wasn't, but I appreciate the apology." "My little sister joined your self-defense class," Jake said after another silence. "Emma, she's a sophomore." Sophia nodded. She remembered Emma, a quiet girl with the same sandy hair as Jake, but none of his former confidence. "She's got good instincts." "Yeah, well, I don't want her to ever feel like she can't protect herself." Jake kicked at a stone on the sidewalk. "I don't want her to be afraid of guys like me." "Then don't be that guy," Sophia said simply. Jake nodded slowly. "I'm working on it." When they reached the corner where their paths diverged, Jake offered his hand. "No hard feelings?" Sophia hesitated, then shook it, getting there. That evening, as Sophia trained in the basement with her mother, landing precise kicks against the heavy bag, she told her the whole story. How she'd been bullied, how she'd finally fought back, and how things had changed since then. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," she finished. "I was afraid you'd be mad that I used my training that way." Her mother adjusted her stance slightly, the way she'd been doing since Sophia was 8 years old. "Sophia, I never taught you to fight so you could hurt others. I taught you so you would never have to be afraid." "But you always said fighting should be the last resort," Sophia reminded her. "And was it?" her mother asked. "Had you tried everything else?" Sophia thought about the weeks of avoidance, of keeping her head down, of enduring the harassment without complaint. "Yes," she said finally, "it was the last resort." Her mother nodded approvingly. "Then you did exactly what you were trained to do. You protected yourself without causing unnecessary harm." She held up the focus mitts. "Now show me that combination again." As the semester progressed, the legacy of what the students now called the Stairwell Showdown continued to ripple through Riverside Academy. The principal implemented a stricter anti-bullying policy. The Girls' Self-Defense Club became one of the most popular extracurricular activities. Marcus, who had never shown much academic interest before, discovered a talent for peer mediation. But for Sophia, the most significant change was more personal. For the first time, she moved through school without hiding who she was. She still wore her glasses, still struggled with her unruly hair, still preferred books to parties, but she no longer hunched her shoulders or avoided eye contact. She stood tall, spoke clearly, and let her strength show in ways that went beyond physical demonstrations. On the last day before winter break, Sophia found a small package in her locker. Inside was a keychain with a tiny pair of boxing gloves and a note that read, "To the girl who taught us all to stand up for ourselves, thanks for the wake-up call. M, J, and E." Sophia smiled as she attached it to her backpack. She'd come to Riverside Academy expecting to be invisible, to get through the next year and a half without making waves. Instead, she'd found her voice, her confidence, and a place where she truly belonged. As she headed to the cafeteria to meet her friends, Sophia reflected on everything that had changed since that day in the stairwell. The bullies had chosen the wrong girl to target, yes, but maybe in a strange way they'd chosen exactly the right one, the one who could show them and everyone else that strength wasn't about intimidation or fear, but about standing up for what was right, protecting yourself and others, and having the courage to be exactly who you are. Sophia pushed open the cafeteria doors, her head held high. The shy new girl was gone.